In the beginning of a scene, we see a woman who looks very distressed and scared. She is seen running away from something in a big old mansion. She then jumps from the roof with piano strings attached to her neck and kills herself. We now meet the protagonist, Evie, at an event called Find Yourself, where she works as a freelance caterer with her friend. Evie is struggling with minimum wage and lives in a small apartment. Her parents passed away, so she has no family to call her own and decided to take a DNA test in hopes of finding her long-lost relative. Now she sent her DNA and found a British man, who happens to be a cousin. Her friend tells her it might be a catfish, but Evie was eager to know her family history and has decided to meet the person. They meet in a restaurant and talk about themselves to get to know each other. He tells her that their cousin Martin and his fiancée, Cecile, of the Deville family, are getting married in the countryside and invites her to the wedding. Evie then accepts his invitation to know more about her family's history. Evie arrives at the UK and is greeted by his cousin Oliver at the airport. Oliver then takes her to the Devilles' residence, New Carfax Abbey, in the countryside, where the wedding celebration will be held. She accidentally bumps into Dia and Imogen, who are recently appointed maids at Deville residence. Evie then meets the head of the butler, Mr. Field, who happens to be an insolent person. Both of them were abruptly interrupted by a young handsome man, whom his cousin Oliver introduced to her as the Lord of the Manor, Walter Deville. Evie is escorted inside the mansion by the butler. She was awed by the magnificent beauty of the mansion and also told her to stay out of the library room due to renovation. She is then introduced by a lady's maid, Mrs. Swift, who takes her inside the room. She then stumbled across a portrait and asked the maid, who told her she was the former lady of the house, who had passed away recently. Late at night, as she was talking on a phone with her friend, she heard knocking on the door, who happens to be Walt. He then apologizes on behalf of the butler and to start things over in a proper way and get to know each other better. Evie later goes for jogging, and after a while, she stops and hears someone talking to her. She turns back and finds someone staring at her from the mansion's window. She then woke up from the dream scared. Evie then decided to get herself a glass of water and saw the butler giving assignments to the maids. Someone behind her is seen trying to reach her, but as she turned, it disappeared. The lady's maid then tells her to get back to the room because it's dangerous out here at night. The butler takes the key to the library room and tells one of the maids to go in for a final cleaning round. She then lights the candle and starts cleaning the room. After some time, the candle goes out by itself, and as she lights it again, it goes out again. Now she feels like someone is stalking her and starts getting scared. She looks up slowly towards the ceiling and saw something creature-like entity. It jumped at her and kills eventually. The next day, the lady's maid wakes her up from sleep, telling her that the family reunion has begun. She then gets dressed and meets his uncle Julius and other relatives. His great-uncle Alfred then raised a toast to welcome Evie. The butler then tells two of the maids to go fetch wine from the cellar. Unfortunately, they would meet the same fate like the other maid. Evie now arrives at the party and meets Victoria and Lucy. Soon after Walt entered the scene, she asked Evie for a dance. They both danced together, along with other couples. Evie and Walt started growing to like each other. Evie is then woken up from her sleep and gets very scared after seeing a glimpse of what happens to be big, long hands with sharp nails. She then hides under the bed, terrified. Soon after, Walt is seen in the room and comforts Evie by saying there's nothing to be scared of and that there's nothing here. Walt stayed at her room together and slept as they talked. Next morning, Victoria and Lucy comes at her room and takes Evie for a spa day. Lucy is very friendly, but Victoria, on the other hand, is quite the opposite. She then walks away after Victoria teased her at the spa. Evie then sneaks into the library room and finds a file about her. She gets really upset and starts packing his belongings to leave. But she is interrupted by Walt, who manages to persuade her not to leave. Both become very close after spending time. Out of nowhere, Walt then asked her to marry alongside Evie's cousin Martin, as in a double wedding, and she then said yes. Later on, she said that she was only joking. Walt smiles and leaves the room. Evie then arrives at the rehearsal dinner. Also, there are three families, the Willingtons of Whitby, the Klopstocks of Budapest, and the Alexanders of London. And after shortly announcing the feast, Evie asked Walt, "Where are the bride and groom?" He smiles and suddenly announces his wedding to Evie. Everyone at the table started clapping as Evie nervously wondered what just happened. Walt then asked for refreshment. One of the maids who was serving at the moment would meet a terrible end. The head butler sliced the neck of the maid and filled a cup with her blood. Evie now realizes how she got herself in trouble. The three families served the DeVille family with brides to strengthen their unity and power. Victoria and Lucy are both married to the immortal vampire Walt. He tells about Emmeline, Evie's great-grandmother, and she understood everything about what was going on. Emmeline was the one from the beginning scene and the portrait in her room. She feared as they drank the maid's blood with pure joy. Evie tried running away but wasn't allowed to do so. Instead, they tied her up to a chair. Soon Victoria and Lucy arrived, trying to make her understand that they would become sisters now. Victoria puts her inside the coffin and is later released by the lady's maid. Upon asking her why she was helping, she replied that she was a close friend of her great-grandmother. Being married to that monster is the reason her great-grandmother killed herself. She tells her that they can be killed only with stake, beheading or fire. Evie makes her way outside, and people are searching for her. She goes in a barn only to find out that it was the dumping storage of the dead bodies. Evie quickly hides under a table. The butler arrives with the dead maid's body, telling one of his men that she won't get far and that he will search her. She gasps as blood begins to drip down her cheek. Evie manages to get away from the barn and locks the butler inside. She finds a nearby town and knocks on a house door. Two elderly couple welcomes her and told to call for help. She was looking around the room when she noticed the couple in portrait with the DeVille family's butler. While trying to attempt an escape, the couple hit her unconscious. Later she woke up and found herself with Walt back in the mansion. Evie now walks towards wedding altar forcefully to wed Walt. With no other option left, she decides to marry him at the ceremony. Evie drank Walt's blood, turned into a vampire, and gained enormous strength. She then freed the maid who was hanging and burned the room by smashing the candles. Walt angrily walked towards her, but Evie stabbed him with a big piece of wood in his chest. Evie and the maid started running but stopped by Victoria. Victoria tells Evie that Walt is not dead but has a flesh wound. Soon Lucy comes to her aid. Lucy pushed Victoria towards a wooden spear. By doing so, both would meet their tragic end. Evie then comes face to face with the butler and, fortunately, kills him with a broken spear. Evie now faces the last remaining danger, Walt. Walt had the upper hand while engaged in an intense fight. She then chops his hand to free herself from his choking. Walt tells her that she should be grateful for the eternal life and power she has. She kicks him into the pool of flames that engulfed the whole mansion. As he killed him, her power dwindled and she became mortal once more. She walks away from all this madness with sense of having relief in the end. After a while, Evie and his friend are seen stalking Oliver. They both had been planning to take him out, and as they head towards the building where Oliver entered. This is where the movie ends. If you like this video, vote this video up, and to see more contents like this in the future, please hit the subscribe button. So long for now.